answers? I think I'm entitled. You want answers? I want the truth! You can't handle the truth!
This is Larry Connors USA. Larry Connors USA.
We're on the cusp of using a military operation to be able to finish this regime once and for all, to put it on a path where it's going to collapse. And what you're seeing here is a force being built to, one, be able to defend when Iran conducts a retaliation attack against U.S. bases and also against Israel, but two, to have the offensive punch to really conduct not a strike, but a campaign against Iran, which would likely last not for a couple of days, but actually longer than that. And that means to take down the civilian and military leadership, all these repressive organizations, to include the IRGC, that have been punishing the people. This is a comprehensive plan to actually take Iran off the board. No president has had this opportunity. This president does.
Retired four-star General Jack Keane on Fox News talking about where we stand with Iran. We have a naval armada in place. We have numerous bases on alert. We've made it very clear to Iran, you're not going to continue building any nuclear devices of any type, not even for civilian structure at this point. Talks are scheduled Friday between U.S. Ambassador Witkoff and an Iranian leader. We're not sure which one yet. Bottom line is, will it accomplish anything? In the meantime, the saber rattling is escalating, especially in Iran. Iranian lawmakers chanting death to America, death to Israel. These are the lawmakers in Iran. Death to America, death to Israel, and they're addressing the Islamic Revolutionary Guard Corps. In other words, they're standing ready to fight, and they want to kill, obviously, everyone in our nation and Israel and anyone who does not conform to the jihadist view. Thanks for joining us. Hour number one, Larry Connors, USA, the 3rd of Feb, and here we are in our first hour. We're here every Monday through Friday for you from 6 to 8 p.m. And from 6 to 8 p.m., we are streaming video while we're on the air, so you can watch the program. How do you do that? We go to NewsTalkSTL, Rumble, Facebook, Twitter. And if you miss anything, everything is put up later as a podcast for you at NewsTalkSTL, LarryConnorsUSA.com, Larry Connors USA Facebook. Very easy to stay in touch with us. And with Larry Connors USA, we're always going to make sure you get news, analysis, opinion, and education. You will know more by the time we finish this hour than you do right now. That's not to say you're not smart and intelligent, but we're always digging for information that might have slipped past you. In our next hour, the fraud yet to be uncovered. Look to L.A. Also, Gregory Wrightstone fighting back against global warming. That, again, is in our next hour. Later in this hour, a major news agency is sounding the alarm. The alarm is there are two... Oh, my God. All right, get composed here for a moment. There are too few Somalis in the Winter Olympics. What? My boots on the ground, Andrew in Chicago, sent me that, and he also asked, so they're going to look at the NBA next, see how many Somalians are in the NBA? I said, well, I might as well, right? We will have that story coming up here shortly, and our story behind the story. Today, the polygraph, the lie detector. I did a story on it years ago, and I lied more than once and got away with it. That story's still to come. Back to the issue with dealing with Iran and where it stands right now. This report from Fox.
Iran says it has summoned all of the European Union ambassadors in the country to protest the bloc's listing of the IRGC, the Islamic Revolutionary Guard Corps, as a terror group. President Trump says Iran is now seriously talking with the United States, even as he highlights the presence of powerful American naval forces in the region. Our chief national security correspondent Jennifer Griffin has details tonight.
After a warning from CENTCOM, Iran now says it has no plans to carry out live-fire exercises in the Strait of Hormuz, despite announcing last week the IRGC Navy would be holding drills in the narrow strait. In the Red Sea, the guided missile destroyer USS Delbert D. Black conducted a joint military exercise with Israel Sunday.
Americans should know that if they start a war, this time it will be a regional war.
Yeah, that's what they're threatening. But he also knows if there is a war, you will cease to exist, and you will be targeted. In the meantime, we continue to have our ICE agents and other federal agents on our streets doing their job, trying to protect Americans, grabbing illegals off the streets wherever they are, especially if they're convicted of numerous crimes and they're yet allowed to roam free in sanctuary cities and states. A lot of focus and pressure have been put up on Department of Homeland Security Secretary Noem, and she was addressing that. And then Senator Kennedy from Louisiana was asked, do you think it's time to get rid of Noem?
That we can always do better, and we learn from every situation that we're in. We see a very organized, well-funded campaign of violent protests against our law enforcement officers. And so we're going to continue to get as much information as soon as possible to give a strategy to protect people, protect our federal buildings like the president laid out yesterday. And we're going to make sure that the American people are safe.
In your view, Senator, has Secretary Noem sufficiently acknowledged the mistakes she's made and her people made in Minnesota?
Well, I haven't heard it. She might have, and I just didn't hear it. I guess I'd make 3 points quickly. Wolf, number one, I'm a big Tom Homan fan. I think he knows what he's doing. I think he exercises prudential judgment. I would leave him in charge. Number two, I think most Americans agree with me that illegal immigration is illegal. Our immigration statutes are not some second-tier laws. I support enforcing them. How you enforce them matters.
Now, that's the key, because we know we've seen the violence on the streets where agents have had to shoot to protect themselves and others. And yes, 2 deaths blamed directly on those shootings. One under close investigation at this point. The first, Renee Good, apparently shows to be justified in everything that's been presented. Maybe more to come, but right now it appears to be fully justified. The second one still under question. And that's fine. That's the way it should be. And the senator is right. He said we will enforce our laws properly execute them. The trouble is the Democrats and the legacy media helping from the sidelines, cheering on protesters to attack federal agents doing their job. And I'll tell you, among those you'll find lining up on that side would be Democrat Congressman Hakeem Jeffries. But I want you to know something. He will not even consider expelling a Florida Democrat currently charged with defrauding FEMA of $5 million.
Direct Stubbe plans to force a vote to expel Congresswoman Shervels McCormick this week, who has been, indicted for allegedly stealing federal funds. What is House Democratic leadership's stand here? Are you opposing this effort and standing, I guess, with Shervels McCormick?
Yeah, I mentioned on Friday that Congresswoman Shervels McCormick is entitled to the presumption of innocence, like every other American.
Yep.
I'm a hard no as it relates to the effort to expel her, and it's going to fail.
The problem with that, and I agree with him, she's charged only, not convicted. But how many times did they call for Trump's head or any administration official inside the Trump White House when the slightest whisper or rumor was going around, they did something wrong? Get rid of them right now. No trial. Just declare them guilty and be done with it. The hypocrisy once again raises a stench level in this room.
Director Stubbe plans to force a vote.
You heard him point out that he was not going to vote to expel her. And yet the hypocrisy is there. I'd mentioned earlier, and we're going to talk about it in more detail later too, about you need to be watching for the next fraud to be uncovered. Part of it in L.A., that's going to be a big one. And now Senator Chuck Grassley of Iowa announcing multiple reports identifying almost 900 accounts linked to the Nazi regime, hiding hundreds of Nazi-linked accounts with billions of dollars. That's still something to be fully uncovered. But don't expect the Democrats to do the heavy lifting if it's going to get them in more trouble. And they find the strangest things to go after. They get support from the legacy media again. And here we are, and I've got it right here in my hands, from the associate editor, as he's listed for the Daily Caller. It's reporting on an Associated Press piece titled, "Europe's Rising Diversity is Not Reflected at the Winter Olympics. Culture Plays a Big Role." So they went ahead and named European countries, the story, and the video posted focusing primarily on Sweden. It prominently featured one Somalia immigrant to the country who has a passion for snowboarding and yet does not appear to compete in the sport professionally. They're raising concern there are too few Somalis being counted and included in the Winter Olympics. This is Associated Press reporting. Again, they're looking at and criticizing a Nordic country for having too few non-white athletes on the 2026 Winter Olympics team. Let me continue some of the Associated Press reporting on it. Quoting, "Immigration from Africa and the Middle East is changing the demographics of Europe's top winter sports countries, but that has not really transferred to their largely white rosters heading to the Milan Winter Olympics. For instance, Team Sweden is almost entirely made up of ethnically Swedish athletes, which is hardly a reflection of the country's diversity, as Sweden has welcomed a historic number of asylum seekers in the recent decade." They had done that. But first of all, did they bother checking if anybody was trying to compete and get on the team and got rejected and what nationality they were originally? Color, ethnicity, anything? Or just look at that. I don't see any, not just, but I don't see Somalians in there. I don't see Somalians on the Winter Olympic team. And when I do see them, they're very few and far between. The story continues, quoting a woman, saying her thoughts running through her mind when she began hitting the ski slopes in northern Sweden. And I'm reading from the AP story. As a black woman from Somalia, she felt like an alien. Well, she was different, but she obviously was capable to make a run and make the team. Goes ahead and says a few years later, snowboarding is a 30-year-old student's big passion. It is helping her integrate into her adopted country society better than she could have imagined. And what she'd love to see now, other migrants experiencing the same joy. I have no problem with that. If you're qualified and your country wants to put you on the team, so be it. It's their decision. If Sweden wants to put an all-black men's team on everything, it's their decision. I'd say it's stupid. I'd say they're probably racially dividing and basically alienating others who would be capable of competing. But this is back to everybody's got to be equal. Oh, well, wait a minute. if we're all going to be equal, I've got to be a little bit better than you. This is back to a consolation prize. The Winter Olympics, you're not going to get a gold, silver, or even bronze, but you will get a ribbon for participation. Is that what you want? Good God. The AP article continues. Immigration from Africa and the Middle East has transformed the demographics of Europe in recent decades. In many sports such as soccer, it has not made a dent in winter sports. Maybe they don't like to play the winter sports, or they're not good at it. Now, would that be because they're Somalian, or the way they were raised and what they were experiencing? I would bet soccer more often than snowboarding. The AP added this: the Olympic rosters of France, Germany, Switzerland, and other European winter sports look a lot like Sweden's overwhelmingly white and lacking the immigration representation seen in the soccer or basketball team. Well, there you go. There you go. Obviously, they're not excluding them, but they have to compete against others to make the team. And maybe some of those who made the soccer or basketball team are really, really good, but they suck at skiing and other winter sports. And the narrator of the AP article continues, immigrants typically live in major urban areas from skiing hubs in the mountains and are in less privileged economic positions. How much money do you need to get on a pair of skis and go down a mountain like crazy? Oh, I know there's a lot more money involved. I'm going to agree with that. But this is again, the idiocy. And we mentioned earlier what my boots-on-the-ground correspondent Andrew had to say in Chicago. He said, when are they going to look at the NBA team? Well, as a matter of fact, Robbie Starbuck, known for his opposition to diversity, equity, and so forth, said, wait until you guys find out about the racial demographics in the NBA. I don't know too many Somalians who are out there, do you? Coming up, Mondami waging war against small business, the very businesses that help New York City stay alive. He is waging war on them in such a way they're going to be wiped out. And he's losing support. We'll get into that in more detail in our next segment. And before we wrap up this hour, the story behind the story. When I took the polygraph exam, lied, got away with it. Lock and load. Ready on the right.
You can connect with Larry on Twitter at Larry Connors USA.
I've told you how Tom Shaw Realtors can help you buy, sell homes, farms, acreage. Listen to what Tom Shaw Realtors did in 2025. More than 100 properties sold, $52 million in sales. ShawRealtors.com. 2026, a great time to visit Lit Cigar Lounge. The Lit Cigar Facebook has numerous events from tastings to music. My main reason for going to Lit is always quality cigars, premium whiskeys. Odds are we'll see each other at Lit Cigar Lounge. A few doors down, Napoli Brothers Pizza and Pasta. Get a pizza baked over coals. Excellent crust and flavor. Or choose one of the many great pasta dishes. You won't leave hungry. Napoli Brothers Pizza and Pasta and Lit Cigar Lounge in the Chesterfield Valley. Renewal by Anderson asking, are you still battling cold drafts? Windows icing up again? Utility costs surging? You're worried about paying more every month? The truth is, you may already be paying for new windows and money lost to energy escaping your home. And here's the thing, you don't want to do this project twice. Renewal by Anderson spends every day replacing bad technology, poor installation of windows and doors that simply don't stand the test of time. But you can afford the best. America's most trusted window replacement company, Anderson. Call 877-WINDOWS or visit rbastl.com. Learn about our December savings event right now. 877-WINDOWS, rbastl.com. Renewal by Anderson. Superior products, exceptional service. Ever been in a wreck or felt as if you've been in a wreck? My advice, contact Dr. Bill Draghi, Esquire Sports Medicine. Yes, they can treat wreck victims, falls, other hazards of life, sports injuries. I go at least twice a month. That keeps the joints in line. Part of your spine get out of line, you start compensating, you're going to have additional pain. Don't be that guy. Visit Esquire Sports Medicine, Big Bend, just north of 40, EsquireSportsMedicine.com.
This is News Talk STL. This is Larry Connors USA. Larry Connors USA.
Well, of course, when Zohran Mamdani was elected to New York City mayor, a lot of folks said, oh, we're going to go to hell in a handbasket in a hurry. But they were saying, no, everybody be equal, everybody be the same, and we'll all survive. But small businesses are feeling the crunch in particular. In fact, the Small Business League has put out a statement that Mamdani's class warfare against New York businesses is economic vandalism. I want to break that down in more detail with Dennis Neal, author of the book Oregoners, an award-winning journalist, also previously with CNBC, also with the Wall Street Journal and Forbes. Dennis, welcome aboard, sir.
Well, thanks so much. It's so great to talk to you, Larry.
So let's begin with this. And I know the statement is not from you, but I assume you agree with this position of the American Small Business League, that what Mamdani is doing in New York is destroying small business, which is the center of that city.
Well, you know, destroying is an awfully strong word, especially when you apply it to New York City, which is so big and diverse and creative, and so nothing can destroy it. But he sure can make life harder for small business, and small business is the backbone of the New York economy, even with Wall Street there, and it's the backbone of the U.S. economy. But just about every move Mamdani has made so far has been bad for business. And it's kind of interesting that a group is pushing back so soon. You know, look at what he's done. He wants to take Newsmax off of taxi cab, panels so that people can't watch a conservative network. And he came out with a press conference. You know, Steve Forbes, my old boss, when I was managing editor of Forbes magazine, came out with an opinion piece on Fox News just the other day or yesterday. And he's talking about they had a press conference accusing DoorDash and Uber Eats and delivery apps, that are employing hundreds and hundreds of people of color and immigrants in New York City, accusing them of draining $500 million from their wages. Well, that's because you guys raised the wages to $21. He wants to raise it to $35 an hour. And so the companies responded by saying, you know what, we're going to instead have you get tipped. And that's not going to be taxed the same way. And so we're going to move your pay over to tips. And it turns out what they left out, as Steve Forbes pointed out, is these delivery guys earned $1.2 billion, last year. So be happy for them. What are you doing? Why are you demonizing these people of color who are able to, earn a better life?
But we were told whenever we would face a hurdle or some kind of bump with Mamdani, he was evolving. He was slowly going to get his feet on the ground and things would evolve and it would all be good in the end. Do you buy that?
Right. He was going to be a moderate.
Yeah.
But then at midnight, upon being sworn in, one of his first moves was to lift all of the executive orders that Mayor Adams had put in place since his September indictment or something on some $100,000 gift thing from a decade ago that never led to any policy change. Okay, she wiped out, and in there was a couple of provisions protecting Jews from anti-Semitism. And so for this Muslim guy accused of anti-Semitic statements in the past to make that one of his first acts was a clear "Slup you. I don't care what you feel." 2 million Jews in New York.
Right.
And some of them, a lot of them, had voted for him.
I know. How do you explain that?
You know, is it the self-loathing? I don't know. Is it that you're so conditioned to liberal causes that you don't even examine your stances? You just knee-jerk march with it because it gives you some kind of virtue signaling meaning in your life? I just don't get it. I'm stunned that Mamdani won election in New York. I'm stunned that the Democrat Party failed to put up better candidates than Cuomo, who had so many scandals attached to him. And we know from Linda Sarsour, a controversial Muslim American terrorist sympathizer, that Mamdani has been groomed by Muslim groups since 2014. He became a citizen only in 2018. And, you know, Asra Nomani, a great journalist on FoxNews.com, she's a friend of mine, showed us that 23 Muslim groups have funded the Mamdani campaign.
You know,
as well as a dozen or 2 dozen Democrat groups, okay, and unions.
Yeah, they're all going to line up.
What are you guys doing?
You're listening to Dennis Neal, and he has a book out called Oregoners. Has it been released yet, or is it still about?
It has not been released. I'm writing it as we speak. I'm writing a chapter even today.
I'm sorry we interrupted. Damn it, I'm sorry. I apologize.
No, not at all. Not at all. I'm happy to have it. But, you know, especially when the writer is writing, he wants any interruption he can find. You know, we love gathering information, but then a lot of times you hate having to let it leave your fingertips.
Yeah,
you know?
well, you can
never as good on the screen as it is in your head.
Maybe you can credit me as amuse for you, maybe, or amusement. But what's the premise of that, though, is taking what we've been talking about with New York City and looking at it as a whole within the state of Oregon. Draw that parallel.
Yes, because Oregon and Portland especially, is the canary in a coal mine for blue states and blue cities. It is so small that it's an incubator lab for democracy and communism, and it's been acting that way. You know, Oregon, I think it was in the 60s or 70s, one of the first sanctuary cities. You know, Portland and Oregon, after the Supreme Court came out with a ruling on the homeless. They came out, a Grants Pass case in Oregon, Grants Pass, they came out and made it even better for homeless people to live on the streets. I mean, they hand out tents and tarps. They bring them clean needles and tin foil for their methamphetamine powder to be able to snort off of clean tin foil. You know, they make life as comfortable as possible for the homeless. When one guy who was homeless for 4 years in the 2000s told me, you should make life as miserable as possible to get them off the street.
Well, I've always wondered, why do you want to be on the streets homeless in Portland? And then if I were going to do it, I'd go south to L.A.
Right. It's just that Oregon is a guy, I was talking to a former district attorney, 24 years in the state, okay, in various districts. And he said that it's become a destination, a welfare destination for riffraff, basically, and drug addicts. No one can go there, face no legal penalties. I drove past a place in Portland a month or two ago selling 3 fentanyl pills for $1. Okay, I mean, it's like walking around downtown. It's like walking around Mad Max film. Okay, that's the way it feels. It reminds me of New York City when I first moved there in the early '80s, when I was almost mugged 3 times in the first 6 months. It was a dangerous city back then. It got a lot better, and then it got worse in the past few years in New York. And all of these cities are showing some of these same signs. But in Oregon, Portland is 65% of the media market. So the messaging the Democrats can get away with is just clear. And when you're in an insane environment, studies have shown this, you're unable to diagnose sanity and find it anywhere. And that's what's happened in Oregon. And there's no accountability for all of the bad things happening. In the unions, there's a couple of unions that basically control state government, because there's no limit on campaign contributions.
Now, I was going to bring that up. There is no limit, so they're going to continue to spend and spend, and they're going to get exactly what they're buying.
The unions put $6 million into the campaign of Governor Kotek, and that's more than any other contributing class for her election in 2022. And I'm told by a Democrat operative that when you're a state legislator, Democrat, first elected office, the first day you show up, the union shows up, SEIU, and the Government Employees Union, and says, hey, here's your chief of staff. And it's a union official.
Right.
Okay. I was told a few weeks ago they put the 2-year budget for the next fiscal period, brought it to the governor's office and said, here's your budget. They wrote it.
Yeah. Now, one final pass on the issue before we have to let you go, and that is you began by pointing out how Oregon is kind of the canary in the coal mine, and other blue states and blue cities and New York should see what's happening. They should see it, and then they do see it. But I don't see anything being done about it other than wink, wink, let's move on.
You know, a number of people in Oregon told me that it won't fix itself until, like an addict, it hits true rock bottom. And it's just not miserable enough yet. And I think that might be true of New York, too. It could take some time. And yet the reaction from the people is instant. Remember in California, the mere mention of, hey, let's go ahead and tax billionaires just one time, we'll tax their wealth, led to $1 trillion, half of what they had in billionaire wealth in California, fled before Jan 1, 2026, fled that possibility. In Portland County, they passed a law for a preschool for all tax. Oh, hey, let 3- and 4-year-olds go to preschool free. Well, they've raised hundreds of millions of dollars, and in the 3 years of that tax passing, 31% of the 1,000 richest taxpayers in the county fled. They moved out.
They're smart. They're smart. Dennis Neal, I want to thank you for your time as always. We'll watch for you wrapping up the book, Oregoners. I'm going to let you get back to writing, and we'll look forward to you releasing it, and we'll have you back on the air.
Thanks so much.
You bet. Dennis Neal, previously at CNBC and Fox Business Network, and also with Forbes. Coming up, this is a thing I probably should never admit since I have built my career on my credibility, but I lied and got away with it on a polygraph.
You are listening to Larry Connors, USA.
You should know that when I endorse Wellington Environmental, it's because I believe and know they will do you right. Wellington takes pride in providing homeowners and businesses whatever they need. You need some dustless blasting? They will take care of that. You need some mold remediation? They can do that. They take pride in training their team to perform multiple services and having the equipment ready to get jobs finished. That's important to you. You make just one call, and you call a company that's been around for more than 35 years with more than 45 technicians in the field. Most of you know finding good workers, then having them show up on time could be difficult. Not for Wellington Environmental. They're there at the designated time, ready to go. Check them out to see what they could do for you. Dustless blasting or anything else you need. Wellington Environmental, 314-644-4930. 314-644-4930. Be well with Wellington. The best thing I ever did for my neck and back pain was go to Esquire Sports Medicine. Dr. Draghi and his staff can take care of those pains. If they can't, they'll refer you to a specialist. And when you're hurting, you don't want to wait. So often with Dr. Draghi and Esquire Sports Medicine, you're treated within 24 hours. For any joint or muscle pain, contact my doctor, Dr. Draghi, Esquire Sports Medicine on Big Bend, just north of 40. EsquireSportsMedicine.com. Another day must be another roofer in town. And John Beal and I were talking. He said, you know, every time you turn around, there's a new roofing company. Many of them have no idea what they're doing, and the statistics show that many will be out of business within 2 to 5 years. Who are you going to call to help you then? You need to remember only one name, John Beal. John Beal Roofing. You have a problem, he can take care of it. And we'll be here for you. John Beal Roofing. Call 1-800-NEW-ROOF. 1-800-NEW-ROOF. Renewal by Anderson asking, are you still battling cold drafts? Windows icing up again? Utility costs surging? You're worried about paying more every month? The truth is, you may already be paying for new windows and money lost to energy escaping your home. And here's the thing, you don't want to do this project twice. Renewal by Anderson spends every day replacing bad technology, poor installation of windows and doors that simply don't stand the test of time. But you can afford the best. America's most trusted window replacement company, Anderson. Call 877-WINDOWS or visit rbastl.com. Learn about our December savings event right now. 877-WINDOWS, rbastl.com. Renewal by Anderson. Superior products, exceptional service.
This is News Talk STL. This is Larry Connors USA. Larry Connors USA.
Now, Larry Connors with the story behind the story.
We use it for several different reasons. One would be to clear somebody of a crime. If they're a suspect, it's a good way to clear them of it, or it's a good way to confirm that they are the person that we're looking for. A lot of times it helps us with interviewing people, that type of thing. Polygraphs aren't admissible in court, so we can't bring the results into court and say, here, he failed the test or he passed the test, that type of thing. But it's more of an investigative aid.
An investigative aid. That's what the polygraph basically does nowadays. The polygraph was first invented in 1921 by John Larson, a medical student at the University of California, Berkeley. And he began to look at blood pressure, pulse, respiration to determine if someone were lying. This is not that much different than you as a kid standing in front of your mom or your dad and you're denying that you ate the last chocolate chip cookie when you've got a cookie crumb on the corner of your lip. And you're kind of shaking and your voice is tweaking and your heart's racing and you're thinking any moment I'm going to pass it. The polygraph will record all of that. The question is it a true factual event, or is it triggered by your fear of the machine, or that you just are having a bad day? In the U.S., since 1923, a landmark case, Fry v. U.S., set the precedent for excluding polygraph results from federal courts due to their lack of reliability. Numerous state courts have followed, maybe sometimes allowing in some instances, but sometimes maybe only as the investigative aid. You can't actually take it in. It just helps investigators pursue their case. There is a major case, one of many I'm going to cite for you a little bit later, a major case where a guy denied having anything to do with multiple murders, and he walked away free based on that polygraph. He would have been. But we'll get to that part of the story in a moment. I told you that I, at one time, as a news reporter, did a piece on the polygraph and what they were trying to find. You need to know this. Despite what you see sometimes in the movies, they're not throwing ambush questions at the person they're making inquiries. They tell you in advance what they're going to be asking. They don't want to have you suddenly shocked by a question that you weren't expecting. They go over in detail question that they're going to ask. Some say, well, it gives you time to prepare and be ready for it. Yes. At the same time, though, they think that takes out the possibility that you got tricked into something. There are no surprise questions. They have a pretest questionnaire in many agencies, again, to identify things like might trigger some responses that not really tied to what they're investigating. Have you had prior drug use, things of that nature? And they're looking at a murder case, nothing to do with drugs. but they want to know what else you got in your history that might send a false positive. So when I tell you that I took the polygraph and got away with the lying, I'm not the first to do that. And I will not be the last. But it's not admissible in court, basically. We have companies that want their employees to take polygraphs. And those cases are fought on a one-by-one basis as well. Because if you're told you must take the polygraph or they're going to fire you, well, you got a right to stand up for your beliefs as well, right? You could go to the Constitution and make it clear that's an unreasonable search and seizure, basic. You can have an attorney, but the attorney cannot be present in the room during the polygraph. So here's how it played out when I was doing the testing. I told you that there are no surprise questions. So I actually wrote the 10 questions I wanted to be asked. 10 questions. And 4 of them I answered truthfully, be it either yes or no. And they don't want a full explanation. It's just basically a yes or no answer. So 4 of them I did exactly based upon the information, since I knew what I was writing, I was factual. On 3 of them, I said a lie when it was actually true. On 3 others, I claimed it was the truth when it was actually a lie. I got caught on 2. One where I lied and said it was true, and I got caught on one where I said it was false and it wasn't. Of course, I already knew how I was going to play the game. And since we're doing it for TV, so did the examiner. And they're very careful to admit and point out to you, this is not a final catch for anyone. That's why they consider it as an investigative tool. Sometimes it's just a matter of using it as a threat. Well, we'll put you on the polygraph. And you see guys on various TV shows or movies, I'll take a polygraph. They know it can't be used against them if they're doing that normally. And secondly, well, then, okay, if you're going to do it, then we will go ahead and hook you up and see what happens. But again, they're going to be limited in how they can use it. I'd mentioned earlier that there's a very major case involving multiple murders where the polygraph examiners did not get the correct answer, and they were willing to let the suspect go free. I think you might remember some details of this case, and that is the other part of the story behind the story.
You are listening to Larry Connors, USA.
Do you know why I endorse Cafe Napoli, all the locations? Visit any of them, and you will quickly appreciate the quality of food, service, atmosphere. So maybe I'll see you at Cafe Napoli in Clayton, Napoli Kirkwood, Napoli 2 in Town and Country, Napoli 3 in St. Charles, right next door to Napoli C. Or maybe you'll find me at Napoli Brothers Pizza and Pasta in the Chesterfield Valley. Now you know why I endorse Napoli, NapoliSTL.com.
This is Larry Connors USA. Larry Connors USA.
Now, the end of the story behind the story.
There's 2 pneumo tubes that we put on. One is for the upper chest, one is for the belly. Males are typically belly breathers. Females are typically chest breathers. We measure them both to cover both areas. And we look for slowing of the breathing, stopping breathing. People typically, if they tell a lie, they either hold their breath or their breathing slows way down. So we look for that. The cardio, your blood pressure. In that, we look for spikes in your blood pressure, your heart rate, that type of thing. That's an indicator of somebody being deceptive. And then the galvanic skin response, that measures the electrical conductivity in the skin when it's reacting to stimulus such as fear, that type of thing.
In other words, you're sweating, and it picks it up. You're sweating kind of profusely. You got something to hide. As an examiner discussing why they put 2 cords around your body, your torso, the upper chest and the abdominal, and he explained why. Then they hook up your finger to a skin monitor. And then they had the blood pressure watch as well. When the polygraph was invented in 1921, as I'd pointed out earlier, it quickly became a tool of police, even though it still wasn't verified if it's going to be accurate or not. And there's no doubt it was abused at that time. But it was rapidly put into place for police work, first used in a criminal trial, actually in 1935. But it also, later into the 40s, became a tool for the government, for those who went to work for our government. And, of course, trying to ferret out communists and others inside our government. It was abused repeatedly, and many people lost their jobs, if not eventually everything they had, because they were either falsely labeled or they refused to take it, and they lost the opportunity they had. As I'd mentioned earlier, you're not going to be asked anything that they have not already discussed with you. The whole idea is to set up a control atmosphere. They've got the two monitors, one on your chest, one on your abdomen. They're watching for your skin electricity reaction, your pressure, your heart pressure, and watching for anything that may show up as a spike on the graph. Now, you're in a position where you can see the monitor and you see it spike, that might frighten you, so you're not allowed to see the monitor. They don't want you to be either frightened by it or encouraged by it. So when I told my lies on 6 of the 10 questions I'd built, and I got caught on one of them where I was telling the truth, but it showed that I lied, and I got caught on another one where I was lying, but it said I was telling the truth. It shows that if you get by with 2 like that, then how can you even begin to consider it as a possible criminal device, a criminal tool for a full court case? Now, again, the investigators can use it as a tool. But in the federal courts, as I said, since 1923, they cannot use it. And, of course, state laws vary, but in general, they do not either. And there are so many cases where if it were absolutely 100% correct, think of how many crimes could be solved quickly. And then again, is it the machine or the person administering it and reading the results? In 2003, a guy by the name of Gary Ridgway, you remember him? Jerome shaking his head, known as the Green River Killer. This was in the Seattle area. He had murdered 49 women. Murdered 49. In 1987, he had passed a lie detector test regarding some of those who had been murdered. He passed it. They came out and said, he's all good. Nothing to see here. But there was another guy that they said, this one we need to look closer at. In fact, they were convinced he was the Green River Killer. He had failed the test, according to the examiner. Turned out he was innocent. And it all became obvious when in 2003, Gary Ridgway admitted, I am the Green River Killer. If the polygraph could have determined that when they were giving it to him in 1987, some of those women might still be alive. And another man wouldn't have been looked at as a killer for a period of time. You're never going to get everything the way you want in any case with all the facts lining up. We look at DNA now in a way that we never did before. That has certainly changed things. And to me, when it comes down to any criminal being sentenced, especially on a capital crime. I'm not going to rely on just eyewitnesses because eyewitnesses often get a lot of information wrong. You can put them on the polygraph and they're going to verify it's this and this and this, and yet it's wrong. Maybe in their head it's correct, which gets around also to how can you beat the polygraph if you're intending to do it? Do you control your breathing? Some go into one and try to conceal a thumbtack that they can kind of prick their finger with occasionally, and it obviously creates a different response. But it still doesn't tell you, is it fact or fiction? When we ran that story, that would have been, I want to say, back in the early 80s, mid-80s. Yes, I'm not old. Never mind. But the bottom line was I had several police agencies upset with me because we'd pointed out there are ways to trick it and get around it. I said, guys, you know this. What's wrong with the public knowing it? They should know it. Most of them understood, and they also knew that, yeah, there's a limit, and we know there's a limit. That's why they could not take any of it into court. But again, the testing going on with DNA and everything else that might come down the road, it will be closely examined, needs to be certified before fully admissible. Tomorrow's story behind the story. Busting the chicken ranch. The chicken ranch? You might recall something with a book and a movie and a stage play. Best Little Whorehouse in Texas. Yes, I was part of that bust as well. The chicken ranch story. Tomorrow, the story behind the story. Coming up, more threats from Iran. And remember our pledge, one nation under God.
You can hear podcasts of this program at Larry Connors USA Facebook. Larry Connors USA Facebook.
John Beal Roofing reminds you we are in the stormy season, and that means if you have even the smallest leak in your roof, you could soon have a much bigger issue. Call John Beal to make sure that your biggest investment is protected. That call can save you major dollars. If you do get hit during a storm, John Beal has a rapid response team. Call 1-800-NEW-ROOF. 1-800-NEW-ROOF. 1-800-NEW-ROOF, John Beal. Ever been in a wreck or felt as if you've been in a wreck? My advice, contact Dr. Bill Draghi, Esquire Sports Medicine. Yes, they can treat wreck victims, falls, other hazards of life, sports injuries. I go at least twice a month. That keeps the joints in line. Part of your spine get out of line, you start compensating, you're going to have additional pain. Don't be that guy. Visit Esquire Sports Medicine, Big Bend, just north of 40, EsquireSportsMedicine.com. There's only one place you can get pizza cooked over coals. Napoli Brothers Pizza and Pasta in Chesterfield Valley. Of course, Napoli Brothers has a great selection of pasta dishes. Between the pizza and pasta, trust me, you will not leave hungry. Then, a few doors down, Lit Cigar Lounge, a wide variety of quality cigars, each offering a unique smoke. That cigar, some premium whiskey, all you need to do is enjoy. Lit Cigar Lounge and Napoli Brothers Pizza and Pasta, Chesterfield Valley. It's that time of season when families, businesses are moving. For local or long distance, I endorse McGuire Moving. Get a date set soon before the schedules are booked. 314-241-0600. 241-0600. McGuire is constantly giving back to our veterans, such as support dogs for our brave. So with McGuire, you're getting excellent service and helping our vets. McGuireMoving.com. So many times, Vincent's Jewelers has helped me surprise someone special. Vincent's locally owned can do the same for you, and you don't have to break the bank to get something really nice, maybe even customized. The smile you're going to get back from that special someone, priceless. Check VincentsJewelers.com every day because new items are arriving and there are special deals. Vincent's, my only jeweler. VincentsJewelers.com. VincentsJewelers.com. Renewal by Anderson asking, are you still battling cold drafts? Windows icing up again? Utility costs surging? You're worried about paying more every month? The truth is, you may already be paying for new windows and money lost to energy escaping your home. And here's the thing, you don't want to do this project twice. Renewal by Anderson spends every day replacing bad technology, poor installation of windows and doors that simply don't stand the test of time. But you can afford the best. America's most trusted window replacement company, Anderson. Call 877-WINDOWS or visit rbastl.com. Learn about our December savings event right now. 877-WINDOWS, rbastl.com. Renewal by Anderson. Superior products, exceptional service.
This is News Talk STL.
Answers? I think I'm entitled. You want answers? I want the truth. You can't handle the truth.
This is Larry Connors USA. Larry Connors USA.
Short of workers, we have a population that is not reproducing it on its own with the same level that it used to. The only way we're going to have a great future in America is if we welcome and embrace immigrants, the dreamers, and all of them, because our ultimate goal is to help the dreamers, but get a path to citizenship for all 11 million or however many undocumented are here.
That's the only way we'll survive as a nation, to welcome all of the illegals currently in our country. Chuck Schumer said it out loud. Exactly what he was thinking, and exactly what the Democrat Party has been pushing. They're going to continue to push. We're going to have to obviously have a serious discussion at some point on resolving some of our immigration issues that stand in front of us. But we begin by going to the fact that is, if you came into the country illegally, you are illegal, period. Now, do we have a way to work out for you to stay if you're not causing trouble and you're simply supporting and providing for your family? Reagan actually went forward with such a plan and basically was saying that's the last time we'll have to do that. Well, he could not see what Joe Biden did when he opened up the border. Thank you, Joe Biden. And we know that many of the illegals in our country right now came in during that 4-year term and the open border policy of Biden. We already had many inside the country anyway. Many of them might have been involved in gang activities or crimes. More of them probably involved in just trying to live life in America undetected, hiding in the shadows, providing for their family. The problem is, though, is once you start saying we're going to take everyone in, let everyone in, you lose control. You don't have a border. If you're going to open up the doors for anyone and everyone, for any cause, and then it drains the resources that you have for American citizens, aside from the crime that will often come with it. Your school is crowded now, you think, for your kids? Wait till you let Chuck Schumer's plan and others get into effect, if they had the opportunity. And they're betting that that's going to be a good issue for them going into the midterm election. They're thinking, look, there's enough people upset with ICE right now that we've got an opportunity here. The issue is not ICE. The issue is illegal immigration. How ICE has conducted itself? Has it been proper in every case? Well, there is now a DHS group that is an oversight board that is going over some of the previous cases and trying to decide on some of them how valid they were or weren't. It's basically a watchdog agency. I have no problem with that, and no member of ICE should have any problems as long as they are obeying our laws and our Constitution. But you'll never get those on the left to admit something like that if it goes the other way. Welcome to hour number 2, Larry Connors USA, 3rd of Feb, 2026. We're here every Monday through Friday for you from 6 to 8 p.m. So you're now in the midst of our second hour. And reminding you, when we're on the air, like right now, you can watch the program. You go to NewsTalkSTL Rumble, Facebook or Twitter, Larry Connors USA, Rumble, Facebook. And if you miss anything and you want to go back and watch or listen, everything goes up as a podcast later, audio and video. Available at NewsTalkSTL, LarryConnorsUSA.com, Larry Connors USA Facebook. You search any platform where they have podcasts, and you search Larry Connors USA, we're there. Always remind you with Larry Connors USA, you are going to get news, analysis, commentary, and education. And coming up a little bit later, Gregory Wrightstone on the lies pushed by the green God lovers. And how, once again, they're trying to hurt America while helping China and every other undeveloped or developing nation while punishing us. If we did not have Trump in the White House right now and everything he's been doing, we would be so far up that creek without that paddle. You know the creek. Stuff creek. A lot of stuff in it. You don't want to step in it. You can smell it. You don't want that either. In the meantime, in dealing with ICE, while they've been getting a lot of criticism, too many want to constantly ignore what they have accomplished and what they have done. I want you to listen to our Department of Homeland Security Secretary, Kristi Noem.
If you think about last year of the Biden administration, over 125,000 children just in that year were trafficked across the border. And by securing that border this last year, zero children have been trafficked in the last 12 months because of President Trump's leadership. And that's what we're going to continue to bring. You've heard about all these children that we found and returned. We actually have countries that are asking for their children back. The president of Guatemala wanted their children back that had been trafficked in our country, and we tried to facilitate that, and an activist judge stopped us from giving those children back to their families. So we're going to continue to work no matter what these left violent protesters are doing to stop law enforcement and to put people's lives in jeopardy.
How can the leftists defend that? Say, no, we're not going to let these children go back to their parents. They were abducted out of their country and brought here to be used as sex objects, and we're not going to allow them to go back home and be safe and secure. How can they do it? Well, they've got activist judges who basically are just willing to accept anything and everything if it's in the name of the left. And with the actions ICE has been involved in, there have been obviously some complications and considerations that, are we doing everything correct? On that point, Kristi Noem said, we're doing the best we can. And then a question was raised for Louisiana Senator Kennedy. Department of Homeland Security Secretary Noem.
that we can always do better, and we learn from every situation that we're in. We see a very organized, well-funded campaign of violent protests against our law enforcement officers. And so we're going to continue to get as much information as soon as possible to give a strategy to protect people, protect our federal buildings like the president laid out yesterday, and we're going to make sure that the American people are safe.
In your view, Senator, has Secretary Noem sufficiently acknowledged the mistakes she's made and her people made in Minnesota?
Well, I haven't heard it. She might have, and I just didn't hear it. I guess I'd make 3 points quickly. Wolf, number one, I'm a big Tom Homan fan. I think he knows what he's doing. I think he exercises prudential judgment. I would leave him in charge. Number two, I think most Americans agree with me that illegal immigration is illegal. Our immigration statutes are not some second-tier laws. I support enforcing them. How you enforce them matters.
That's the key. Of course, they were loving the fact that he's pushing Tom Homan. He did not say, I would replace Kristi Noem with Tom Homan. That's not what he said. They want you to believe he said that, but he didn't. He said, I'm a big supporter of Tom Homan, and I think he knows what he's doing. And he should stay in the position he's in right now, which basically back on the streets, like in Minnesota, Minneapolis, trying to see how the agents are reacting or not reacting. There comes a time that if you're on the law enforcement side and you're in the street and you're constantly getting spit on and bottles of urine thrown at you, that you might lose your cool. You can't do that. You can't do it. I mentioned earlier, congressional Democrats are really urging the Inspector General to conduct a review of investigating use of force by ICE. And the DHS watchdog group is underway, but the Democrats, they want it done expeditiously. In other words, done immediately. In other words, go ahead and convict all of them of being wrong. That's a witch hunt. That is not a look for justice. In the meantime, there is trouble in Mondani Paradise, New York City. Who you gonna blame? Mondani heckled at a recent event.
That's right, we know about your mom. Now listen, we was with you, Zoran. We voted for you, Zoran. We advocated for you, Zoran. We advocated for you. You ain't getting up and get up in there and lie to us. You lied, Zoran. Shame, Zoran. Shame. Shame. The first lie was CCRB, Zoran. Shame.
Shame. Shame, Zoran. Shame. Yeah, did you see that in the leftist media? Not that you bother watching or listening, but I'm willing to bet you probably didn't. But there are a lot of folks calling him out and getting heckled by the voters saying, we voted for you, we advocated for you, and look what you've done to us. Part of what they're talking about is how he's basically, as one small business group calls it, he's carrying out a class warfare against New York small businesses. His administration released a report accusing companies like DoorDash and Uber Eats of diverting more than $500 million from delivery workers. But they also buried their own data in New York City, showing workers' earnings actually rose by $1.2 billion. And, of course, it's a fraud, and we're going to have to get into fraud and find out more about it. And we know we're going to see more out of Minnesota. We're not going to let that one go, nor should we. But what we also have to do is not just focus on Minnesota. Other states we know have the issues. We know Oregon is one of them. My guest in the last hour has a book coming out talking about how basically he sees Oregon as the canary in the coal mine of how bad things can get and how fast. And not just on fraud and scams, but everything else that comes with the leftist viewpoint. But the fraud yet to be uncovered, how massive could that be? Let me give you an example of something here. Now, this came from Mehmet Oz, who's currently the administrator for the Centers for Medicare and Medicaid Services. He said, you've got hospice that's grown sevenfold in the last 5 years, representing almost $3.5 billion of fraud just in L.A. County, just in one county in California. And he asked how many other counties in California, let alone across the nation, are guilty of this kind of fraud. L.A. County accounts for a fifth of all home health care billed to the federal government. Obviously, there's an opportunity for fraud. If you got an opportunity, you're going to use it. They do. And what they've found already, ghost patients, in other words, they didn't even exist, shell companies, shady locations. Mehmet Oz added 18% of our entire country's home health care, 18% of the entire country's home health care is being billed out of Los Angeles County. How is that possible? It's not unless you're in there and you've got your finger on the scale and moving money from the till to your back pocket. Obviously, the high likelihood that the increase in hospice health care is just like the scam we saw with the daycare scam in Minnesota. He also points out this might not just be Somalians and others like that. This might actually be members of the Russian and Armenian mafia exploiting federal hospice funding. He said, we found 42 alleged hospice providers within just 4 blocks. 42? Hospice is end-of-life care treatment, and they got 42 of them within 4 blocks of each other? In the San Fernando Valley, 112 hospice providers all listed the same building as their location. Fox News went out to take a look at it, and sure enough, no one in sight. Just like the fake daycare centers in Minnesota, Washington, and Ohio. No children. And these fake hospice centers are not putting any elderly people even up front to say, look, this person is dying and we're trying to help them. And since California is a woke sanctuary state, you've got corrupt Democrats all around them that are going to continue to fuel this machine because it, in turns, pays back for them. In Los Angeles, they're reporting a total of 1,923 hospice providers. 1,923. Let's just round it off. 1,900 in just L.A. That surpasses the total from 36 other states combined. And they're billing Medicare for stuff like walkers, extra bedpans, whatever, anywhere from $1,000 to $3,000 apiece. Hospice patients are supposed to be within 6 months of expected death. Don't wish that on anyone. You don't want anyone to go through it. But you want money available to help them when they need it. If it's all being stolen, it will not be there for you or your loved ones either. It also pointed out earlier that Senator Chuck Grassley of Iowa announced that an investigation by Credit Suisse uncovered almost 900 Nazi-linked accounts at their bank. They're going to be hearing more about this, how various Swiss banks and the Nazis were conspiring to steal for decades, obviously. Coming up, as I'd mentioned earlier, Gregory Wrightstone. There are a lot of green god lies out there, and they continue to fire up once again, claiming that we should just basically shut everything down. And yet at the same time, we are currently at the helm of gas-fired power projects and an expected growth of 50%. We're not shutting anything down. Lock and load, ready on the right.
listening to Larry Connors, USA.
Previously, I've told you about dustless blasting, a special service offered by Wellington Environmental. It could work for you in your place. Recently, a crew removed a driveway sealer that had failed. The owner wanted to go back to the original concrete so it could be properly sealed. Dustless blasting worked. That homeowner is happy. Now, sometimes surfaces need pressure washing instead of blasting. In fact, there was an exterior stone fireplace cleansed by pressure washing, and when it dried, all the dark stain was gone. That stone had its original appearance. Wellington is versatile with blasting. Dustless blasting or whatever you need. They will evaluate and make a decision. How do you get them to your door? Very easy. Call 314-644-4930. 644-4930. Wellington Environmental, making your world great. In fact, be safe, be well with Wellington Environmental. McGuire Moving is Silver certified, which means they are great at relocating senior citizens. In fact, McGuire is a household name because McGuire understands the stress involved when moving older adults. So if you or family members need help moving, I highly recommend McGuire Moving. 314-241-0600. 241-0600. Get a free in-home estimate. McGuireMoving.com. So many times, Vincent's Jewelers has helped me surprise someone special. Vincent's, locally owned, can do the same for you, and you don't have to break the bank to get something really nice, maybe even customized. The smile you're going to get back from that special someone, priceless. Check Vincent'sJewelers.com every day because new items are arriving and there are special deals. Vincent's, my only jeweler. Vincent'sJewelers.com. Vincent'sJewelers.com. Ever been in a wreck or felt as if you've been in a wreck? My advice, contact Dr. Bill Draghi, Esquire Sports Medicine. Yes, they can treat wreck victims, falls, other hazards of life, sports injuries. I go at least twice a month. That keeps the joints in line. Part of your spine get out of line, you start compensating, you're going to have additional pain. Don't be that guy. Visit Esquire Sports Medicine, Big Bend, just north of 40. EsquireSportsMedicine.com.
This is News Talk STL.
I guess I grew up on an older road, a pedal to the metal, always did what I was told. Until I found out that my brand new clothes came secondhand from the rich kids next door. And I grew up fast, I guess I grew up mean. There's 1,000 things inside my head I wish I ain't seen. And now I just wander through a real bad dream, or feeling like I'm coming apart at the seams. But thank you, Jack Daniels, oh, number 7, Tennessee whiskey got me drinking in heaven. And
this is Larry Connors USA. Larry Connors USA.
Well, the so-called experts say with AI coming and all the divisions it's going to create and new economy, we need to be on top, and we're going to need a lot more power being generated. In other words, to keep those farms working, the AI farms, and getting the computers up to full speed, keeping that way, we're going to have to do a lot more energy use. But the left doesn't want that to happen. We are currently leading a global surge in new gas-fired power generation that some say will be a major leap in, quote, planet heating emissions. Joining us now, Gregory Wrightstone, author of the book, A Very Convenient Warming, also executive director of the CO2 Coalition, and a geologist. Welcome aboard, Gregory. Glad to have you with us again.
Yeah, good to be on with you. And you're right about these data centers. I never realized they would suck up this much energy. And I still don't understand why it's needed. I understand you need a lot of water for cooling. But, boy, it's they're talking about tripling the amount of natural gas that we're using for electricity generation just in a year. That's incredible.
Well, as you know, the opponents are already saying this is going to pollute our air more. We should not do it. In other words, we're supposed to step aside and let China run ahead?
Yeah, well, they get a lot wrong about this subject, by the subject matter. I mean, both energy and climate change, they get really, really wrong. Our electricity prices, I'm calling you from Florida right now, and our electricity prices have almost doubled in the last 2 years. And they're trying to say that's because of natural gas-fired and coal-fired electricity, but it's not. It's renewables and wind turbine energy that are driving up the cost. But the dirty little secret you're going to find here, because there's so much natural gas that's planned to be used, and we're building quite a few export terminals to export the liquid natural gas. Right. What they do is take the regular natural gas, turn into liquids, and then ship it to wherever LPG, France, Germany, anywhere. Yep. And well, there are two different things: liquefied petroleum gas, or LNG, it's usually referred to. So what we're going to see here is, right now, natural gas prices are some of the lowest that they've been in 25 years. And that's because we had a glut of natural gas. And so what we're going to see over the next several years, almost certainly, that the cost to generate the electricity from natural gas is going to increase, because their base price for natural gas is going to go up.
With that in mind, with that in mind, I'd like your response to a remark made by a project manager at the GEM Oil and Gas Plant Tracker. They're pointing out that locking in new gas plants to meet these uncertain AI energy demands, because we still don't really know what it's going to involve, but says it's going to be a gambit that has to be solved with flexible, clean power. And as the AI bubble inflates, the U.S. must decide whether it's going to double down on a fossil fuel while the rest of the world pivots to renewables. Your response?
Well, you can't solve this energy shortage, and really it's the electricity shortage that we have with renewables, because obviously the sun sets every day on a regular basis, and sometimes the wind doesn't blow when you really need it. The three things that your listeners should understand about electricity generation: three things. It should be reliable, abundant, and affordable. Wind and solar are none of those. So for every gigawatt of solar or wind that you build, you have to back it up with a reliable source. Either it probably is going to be natural gas, but you could also back it up with nuclear or a coal-fired plant. And so for every gigawatt of renewable energy, you have to build exactly 1 gigawatt of reliable it's really thermally generated energy is what we call it. And so you're not really saving any money by building these renewables. You're spending a lot more.
You're listening to Gregory Wrightstone.
The other thing we learn is...
I just want to point out your name again, Gregory Wrightstone. Go ahead, sir. I did not mean to interrupt you.
No. I'm used to it. My wife does it all the time.
I'm going to call her when we finish.
No. But the other thing here is, and I forgot my train of thought where I was going.
That's not my fault
with this. But it is no. So you're gonna have to back those up.
We'll back it up.
They're shutting these coal-fired. They're shutting these coal-fired plants down, one right after the other. The Trump administration and Chris Wright at DOE have stopped some of these in Michigan, Pennsylvania, and elsewhere. Destruction of the coal-fired plants.
Well, this in Western Pennsylvania, they're opening up one that's been shuttered that they plan to resurrect to that. So that's a win, but it's one small win.
It is, and I've got personal experience in that sector, in that area. I was a founding partner of a large natural gas company, energy company that was based out of Pittsburgh, and we were flying high when we first started back there. We were getting, your listeners won't really mean anything, but it will in just a moment. We were getting $12.50 per MCF. MCF is 1,000 cubic feet, not million cubic feet. We were getting $12.50, and within 3 years, because of this huge glut and boom in Marcellus Shale and Utica Shale natural gas production, the prices we were being paid went from $12.50 down to 85 cents an MCF.
Wow!
And what you can't make money like that.
Of course,
a lot of people. But we may not see the same quick rise in natural gas, but we could certainly see current natural gas prices doubling or tripling, I think, in the next 3 or 4 or 5 years.
Well,
that's going to be passed on directly to the consumers.
The folks we do see always making money on it is someone like Al Gore with, an inconvenient warning that we're going to die and we should already be dead and be living in the dark by their forecast originally. That's, again, the background for Gregory Wrightstone's book, A Very Convenient Warming. And again, serving as executive director of the CO2 Coalition, you've got to fight against this on a constant basis from folks like Gore that see you as some three-headed monster.
That's true. And also, believe it or not, we're fighting against the major oil companies. They love stupid things like this, and the utilities love spending more money. They're not driven to save money for the consumers. That's because the utilities are guaranteed a certain rate of return on their money, whatever they invest. So the more they invest, the more money they make. And that's all going right back to the utility users, your end users, the citizens that are buying from each one of these utilities. And they have no incentive, the utilities don't, to reduce their costs. They're incentivized, actually, to spend more money.
Now, when you say incentivized, are they subsidized at the same time, in addition to getting price making?
I don't believe so. I'm sure there's some amount of that in there. But the main thing is the guarantee on their rates of return. Right. So each year, the PUC, Public Utility Commissions of each state, they lobby them to increase their electricity rates so they can keep that guaranteed rate of return. And it's insidious. The big major oil companies, ExxonMobil, Chevron, the rest, they want the subsidies that are coming. We're talking, just jumping a little bit, to carbon capture and sequestration. These big oil companies stand to make billions of dollars, and it's mainly for coming out of your listeners' right-hand pocket or left-hand pocket, out of their wallets, and going right to the big in subsidies directly to these big oil companies. And so they're lobbying for more carbon capture and sequestration.
I want to give you a full minute to explain the carbon capturing as to how that's going to be evaluated and handled.
Well, if you look at carbon capture from a coal-fired power plant, to set up this carbon capture where they suck it directly out of the chimney or the exhaust of burning of the coal, what you're doing is you're generating water vapor and carbon dioxide. They strip it out. The costs of that are approximately $1 billion per coal-fired power plant, but it gets worse. Stripping CO2 out of that stream is very energy intensive. I've seen estimates of 25 to 30% of the electricity generated is used to do the carbon capture. And they use different methods. I won't go into the details. Wow. The most common one is called amine extraction. But it's $1 billion, and it takes 30%. It takes 30% of the energy.
Yeah, so much.
And that's just going to drive up cost to everybody.
Of course it will. The numbers can't be denied. Gregory Wrightstone, as always, I appreciate. I'm sorry, we could spend a full 2 hours and would still need to add additional material. But check out his CO2 Coalition and his book, A Very Convenient Warming. Gregory, appreciate it. Like to have you back in the future, sir.
All right, let's do it.
All right. I'm going to call your wife right now. Coming up, Billie Eilish. Suddenly, there's a plot twist when she calls Americans land thieves.
You can connect with Larry on Twitter at Larry Connors USA.
Great news from my sponsor, Tom Shaw Realtors, proving if you want to buy, sell homes, farms, acreage, you want Tom Shaw. In 2025, selling more than 100 properties, $52 million in sales. ShawRealtors.com. When I have business clients or guests from out of town, I often take them to Cafe Napoli. I know they're going to enjoy any of the Napoli locations. Cafe Napoli in Clayton, Napoli 2 in Town and Country, Napoli 3 in St. Charles, next to Napoli C, Napoli Kirkwood, or Napoli Brothers Pizza and Pasta in the Chesterfield Valley. Excellent food and intellectual conversation if they bring the intellectual conversation. And NapoliSTL.com. NapoliSTL.com. Renewal by Anderson asking, are you still battling cold drafts? Windows icing up again? Utility costs surging? You're worried about paying more every month? The truth is, you may already be paying for new windows and money lost to energy escaping your home. And here's the thing, you don't want to do this project twice. Renewal by Anderson spends every day replacing bad technology, poor installation of windows and doors that simply don't stand the test of time. But you can afford the best. America's most trusted window replacement company, Anderson. Call 877-WINDOWS or visit rbastl.com. Learn about our December savings event right now. 877-WINDOWS, rbastl.com. Renewal by Anderson. Superior products, exceptional service. 2026, a great time to visit Lit Cigar Lounge. The Lit Cigar Facebook has numerous events from tastings to music. My main reason for going to Lit is always quality cigars, premium whiskeys. Odds are we'll see each other at Lit Cigar Lounge. A few doors down, Napoli Brothers Pizza and Pasta. Get a pizza baked over coals. Excellent crust and flavor. Or choose one of the many great pasta dishes. You won't leave hungry. Napoli Brothers Pizza and Pasta and Lit Cigar Lounge in the Chesterfield Valley.
This is News Talk STL.
Jimmy's in the back with a pocket of high. If you listen close, you can hear him cry. Oh, Lord, heaven knows we belong way down below. Sing it. Oh, Lord, heaven knows we belong way down below. Way down below, way down below.
This is Larry Connors USA. Larry Connors USA.
I've been in Minnesota 4 days total, working on obtaining this indictment. We arrested 2 more, and I made it very clear, if you protested, if you rioted in that church, we are going to find you and we're going to arrest you. Don Lemon and 8 others have now been charged in a single indictment because you cannot attack, and that's what it was. It was an attack style on a house of worship. You can't do it. It was a Sunday morning. There were parishioners, there were families, there were grandparents, there were people with canes, there were children upstairs in the nursery. They bombarded in, and as Don Lemon put it in his own words, they were on their way to a resistance at that church. And that's exactly what they did.
That is A.G. Bondi talking about the Don Lemon case where he claimed, "Oh, I'm a reporter here. I'm reporting on this group going into this church." No, you were part of it. You were knew in advance. That doesn't make you directly complicit. Gave you an opportunity to get the story first. That I can go with. But you were also agitating. You were attacking verbally the pastor and anyone around him. And you want to claim, well, I have a First Amendment right. I'm going to grant you a First Amendment right. But First Amendment also is freedom of religion. And you cannot go storm a religious event as you did. It's a violation, period. But they're going to continue to waltz around and try to, well, let's find it if we can get a favorable judge. You know they will. And as I said, when they originally arrested a couple of the folks that were involved, Don Lemon was not among those arrested. And I told you then, I know that he was so upset. Well, what about me? I was there too. You should arrest me so I would have more for my platform, whatever the hell that is nowadays. Since his fall from grace, as if he ever had it, with CNN, he's virtually disappeared. I think he has some kind of little video channel or whatever. I'd be willing to bet Larry Connors USA has a lot more listeners and followers than Don Lemon Fruitcake. Oh, how much? How much do you want to bet? Let me put a pen to paper on that. But I feel confident for fact that our listeners and followers are more loyal and they're more American. Something was said the other day, as you well know, by District D.C. U.S. Attorney Jeanine Pirro. The remarks upset me at the time. I hadn't had a chance to address them, and now I'm glad I kind of held back because I figured at some point there's going to be backtracking. And sure enough, it appears, according to a piece in Politico, that's what she's now doing. If you recall, she made remarks, I don't care if you have a gun license in another district. I don't care if you're a law-abiding gun owner somewhere else. You bring a gun into this district, count on going to jail, and you hope you get your gun back. She made that on the Fox News Monday night, where she previously hosted her own program, Justice with Judge Jeanine. But now, less than 24 hours, she's apparently trying to reframe those comments, writing in a social media post that she is, quote, a proud supporter of the Second Amendment. Washington, D.C. law requires handguns be listed, or licensed, I should say, in the district with the Metropolitan Police Department to be carried into our community. She wrote that on her post today. She said, we're focused on individuals who are unlawfully carrying guns and will continue building on that momentum to keep our communities safe. That's not what she was saying the other day. She said, I don't care if you are a law-abiding citizen and you have a gun license, you come into our district and you don't have it from us, we will lock you away. Second Amendment support among MAGA, Trump, conservative, independent, libertarian, all went right back at her. She acknowledged that. She wrote, some people are concerned about something I said yesterday, and then began to clarify her position. I think what she recognized, your remarks were exactly as called out by the National Association for Gun Rights. Your remarks were unacceptable and intolerable by a sitting U.S. attorney. Even Kentucky Congressman Massey, one of the administration's most frequent critics, denounced Pirro, writing on his social media, why is a conservative judge threatening to arrest gun owners? Good question. I think she began to feel the heat, and it got hotter and hotter. Coming right out of Florida by numerous members of Congress, also out of Texas, Chip Roy. Florida Governor Ron DeSantis said Second Amendment rights are not extinguished just because an American visits D.C. Good. What we do need is reciprocity across the nation. Just as your driver's license would be recognized in any state, so should any gun permit or your right to carry. And it is, if you go by the Constitution, you have a Second Amendment right. When I would go into poker tournaments in Chicago sometimes in that area, I was always packing because I'm carrying a lot of cash. I know if I get stopped by a highway trooper or anyone, I'm going to face charges, gun charges. But I thought, you know what, I'll take my chance with that versus being shot and left dead alongside the road. And I guess I could have just given the whole thing up anyway because many times I didn't win as much money as I wanted, so it didn't work out. So it goes. You remember, of course, we talked about previously how birth tourism was beginning to take a toll on our nation. This was happening during the Barack Obama term, and we're seeing results of it right in front of our faces now, even more so. That was where wealthy aristocrats, oligarchs, whatever you want to call them, from Russia or some other country, the woman is pregnant, and maybe a month or so before she's due, they fly into the States, live in a lavish hotel, have the baby. Baby's born on our U.S. soil, is an automatic U.S. citizen. And they go back home to China, Russia, wherever. But that child is a U.S. citizen and has a right to come back later as a U.S. citizen and bring in family members. All of that did explode under Obama, especially Chinese nationals. And the Chinese Communist Party made sure they were actively using it. Breitbart News senior contributor Peter Schweitzer points that out in one of his newest books, The Invisible Coup, How American Elites and Foreign Powers Use Immigration. In one chapter titled China, the Manchurian Generation, says this is exactly what the administration under Obama was doing, allowing Chinese birth tourism more accessible by ordering U.S. offices do not deny visa applicants solely because they plan to the U.S. just to get citizenship for their child. Let them come. Let them have the baby. The leftist hypocrisy is never going to amaze me. It doesn't even shock me, but from time to time I think, how can you really do that? Well, yeah, I know. You guys just don't see it, do you? And it's always on display. There's a Florida Democrat charged with stealing $5 million. You ask her Democrat leader in the House, Hakeem Jeffries, would you consider removing her from the House or from any participation until the case is resolved? You know the answer you're going to get? You're going to get it from Hakeem Jeffries.
Direct Stubbe plans to force a vote to expel Congresswoman Shirley McCormick this week, who has been, indicted for allegedly stealing federal funds. What is House Democratic leadership's stand here? Are you opposing this effort and standing, I guess, with Shirley McCormick?
I mentioned on Friday that Congresswoman Shirley McCormick is entitled to the presumption of innocence, like every other American. I'm a hard no as it relates to the effort to expel her, and it's going to fail.
All right, here's where I'm going to say something that, do not take this out of context, but I'm going to agree with Hakeem Jeffries that every American is innocent until proven guilty. But they never go down that road if it involves conservatives. They went after Trump with everything they had and everyone around him. And they had already not just indicted, not just charged, but convicted him when they had not done so. Suddenly, in that case, it's acceptable to declare that, no, we don't have to follow that law that way. So I understand when Hakeem Jeffries says, I will not vote to expel Congresswoman Shirley McCormick, whatever her name is, even though she's indicted for defrauding FEMA of $5 million. Now, I'm going to go along with her because she's just indicted. She's not convicted. But I will tell you, if it were a Republican, he would have no problem at all in calling that member onto the House floor and saying, we're going to start stripping you of your committees. It's never going to be played by a fair game, is it? And hypocrisy, once you go down that road, there is no way to turn around. There's no U-turn. There's no off-ramp. You're on it. And sometimes folks that get on that road claiming that they have the high moral ground, everything around them gets stripped away and they're exposed. They are butt naked. Which brings me to Billie Eilish. You know, the Academy Award winner the other night. While accepting a Grammy, she made one remark saying, F ice. That's all I'm going to say. Sorry. F ice. Then she also added, as grateful as I feel I honestly don't feel like I need to say anything but that no one is illegal on stolen land. No one is illegal on stolen land. F ICE. She lives in a $3 million mansion, surrounded by high walls. John Nolte of Breitbart did some investigating on this. He gets the credit for this. I think credit could be spread to others as well, but I want to go ahead and mention that. It turns out the woman that says no one is illegal on stolen land, so there's no reason to take people and take them out of our nation. Turns out that she's living on stolen land in her mansion. The Kangva tribe, the Tonga tribe, I hope I'm pronouncing it correct. A spokesman for the tribe said, "We appreciate the opportunity to provide clarity regarding her remarks. As the first people of the greater Los Angeles basin, we do understand her home is situated in our ancestral land. She has not contacted our tribe directly regarding her property. We do value the instance when public figures provide visibility to the true history of this country." Then saying, "We hope in future discussions the tribe can explicitly be referenced to ensure the public understands the greater Los Angeles basin remains Tongva territory." So her remark that no one is illegal on stolen land, she's living on land taken from that tribe. Whoopsie. Whoopsie. According to John Nolte, like I said, for Breitbart, he said, looking at this, he said, turns out that the Tongva stole the land first, actually. That they descended from a Aztecian-speaking people, originated from what was now Nevada, moved into Southern California 3,500 years ago. So even they ended up stealing it from another group. But now Billie Eilish is living on stolen land. Do you think she's considering selling the mansion and all the property and giving all the proceeds to the tribe? I hear you out there, and no, I'm not drinking that early. I will in a matter of moments, and I'll probably lift a glass in honor of her stupidity and getting caught. I love it. As always, I thank you for listening. Continue to support us, spread the word. And of course, remember, we'll be back tomorrow at 6. And remember our pledge. We never want to forget it. One nation under God.